Welcome to Spiritual as Fuck,
Spiritual as Fuck.
a podcast where we explore everything outside of the ordinary. I'm Liz Volpe. I'm a social entrepreneur, now psychic medium, teacher and mentor, with a huge passion to inspire people to dream big and change the world.
I'm Diane Driscoll, a coach, facilitator and speaker. I'm also a psychic intuitive, learning to incorporate my spiritual gifts into my life and business.
We're here today to share real and raw spiritual stories. It's going to give you a safe space to challenge what's normal and have some serious fun along the way.
We hope you're ready to get spiritual as fuck. Some super exciting news to share with you before we launch into this week's episode. Liz and I are introducing a limited edition Spiritual as Fuck t-shirt to commemorate the first year of our Spiritual as Fuck podcast. This is a must-have statement tee for all you spiritual warriors. It makes a fantastic Christmas gift for your like-minded friends, so spread some love and positivity by surprising them with a present that embodies their spiritual as fuck essence. Pre-order now, and delivery is mid-November. Link and details in the show notes.
Hello, everybody. We are back. Can you believe it? Every 2 weeks, yet we constantly receive so many messages saying, can you bring us more? So, unfortunately, Diane and I are too busy, are we, Diane?
We've got a 3D life to lead as well as all of the spiritual as fuck stuff.
Although maybe we should just start recording every single conversation we have, because we're always sharing these crazy things that are happening.
True, it's true.
But more to the point, we are back, and today we have chosen to chat about something that actually you have asked for. This has come from you as the listeners. We do hear what you say, and this is something that I think Diane and I are quite excited to talk about as well, because it is a practice that we've always had. We are going to be delving into the world of divination. We are going to be talking about the oracle cards, tarot cards. We might touch on pendulums and all of those spiritual tools that I guess we can use to bring us clarity in our life. Now, my journey kicked off with oracle cards. And it's funny because I just recently ran a workshop to, lead people through how to use oracle cards and different divination tools as well. And in reflection, my journey with the cards had changed quite a lot. And I'm interested, Diane, to hear obviously a little bit more from you as well. But I guess I'm just going to start off with a little bit about the history, because divination practices, they go back centuries and centuries. We're talking ancient civilizations. These type of practices are found in Greece, ancient Egypt, China. They really have kind of spanned across the world. And I know that tarot especially came from playing cards. I'm not too sure if you know that, Diane, but they were used in Europe in the 15th century from playing cards, and eventually people started to actually bring in messages and use them for, divination just the same. What's your experience with cards, Diane?
It's interesting because both of us started, I think, with cards around the same time. So I think I was 15 or 16 when I bought my first deck, and it was Aleister Crowley tarot cards. Still have them, but they called to me, had to go in, had to buy them. And I guess in the early days I was very much reading the little book that goes along with it. Every single card had to know exactly, so I wasn't reading intuitively. So when you say about how your practice unfolds or changes over time, that has changed massively for me. But I was back then very much looking at each card as being this is the message. Exactly what's written on this little book is the message, not reading into anything. What am I feeling? What am I sensing? And it's interesting looking back at that particular deck now. I use that very, very, very rarely, because I think my practice has moved on so much and I use different decks for different things. But I find I always use it if I'm ever going through something that, as an example, if I've been triggered by something from my teenage years, if something comes back, that a person comes back into my life from my teenage years or a circumstance. So it is almost programmed with my teenage self
I love
experience, which
that.
probably sounds a bit strange, but that's when I reach for that deck. But it is, yeah, I've got a multitude of them. And like you, I use them in various different ways. But so for you, Liz, what I want to know is, particularly because not only do you read decks like cards for yourself, you're also someone who, you know, reads for a living. So you're doing readings for people on a daily or a weekly basis, but you also teach cards as well.
Well, you know what? I feel like before all of that, I just have to
Yes.
point something out I find really interesting. Your first deck was a tarot deck,
Yes.
and mine was Oracle. We'll talk about the differences. Now,
Yeah.
for me, I didn't even dare touch a tarot deck, honestly, until about
Oh,
2 years ago.
really?
I
Why?
was so put off by tarot.
Oh
I
my
found,
God.
you know,
I need to
from
know
being,
this.
and it's interesting because it kind of suits our personalities in a weird way. I could
Yeah.
see why you'd be more driven to the tarot. But for some reason, since being a really young girl, there was something quite fearful to me about the tarot. You know, obviously you have
Yeah.
like the death card and that type of stuff, which when you learn the tarot, you realize it doesn't mean that anyone's going to
Yes.
just drop
Yeah.
dead. But the way that they looked, the colors, the symbolism, the structure to them just never ever attracted me to them. Whereas the Oracle card, you know, if you look at the main differences, firstly, the tarot deck has a lot more cards than the
Yes.
Oracle most of the time. The tarot is highly structured. You know, you've got
Yes.
the different suits. So in terms of reading them, it can be a little bit more complicated to kind of get used to the spreads. For me, Oracle were just super gentle. They had angels on, they were pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Uplifting.
yeah, a little bit more uplifting or less scary to kind of take that first step and
Yeah.
into spirituality, you
Yeah.
know. Again, having the fear attached from starting to play around in this field as a young girl. But for me, the flow and the lack of structure with the Oracle allowed me always to kind of really bring in my intuition, which just I felt more comfortable with.
Yeah.
Would you say that you are more structured as a person?
Oh, absolutely. But
Yes.
that wasn't where my mind was going. I was just thinking, I'm so glad that you brought us back to this, or that big difference between it. Because when I think back to who I was as a teenager, so like I was a heavy metal fan, I was into a lot of, you know, like I still think I was always a person that had a balance of darkness and light, but I was definitely, you know, into the occult, into the paranormal, into things that were probably a lot more doom and gloom. I mean,
Well,
the
I didn't want to
caliber.
say that, Diane.
It's like, look at me now in my orange sweatshirt. It's like,
You've come so far.
no, exactly. Who is this chick in front of you? But when you say that particularly like the Aleister Crowley deck, now looking at it, I find a degree of it's kind of jarring. There is that real, like it's very angular. There's no soft edges. There's nothing about it that is soft or welcoming. And I think that's why I'm drawn to it when there's something that's a trigger, something that's, you know, almost like that it needs to be tackled, that it needs to be, you know, that it needs that kind of a bit more, probably a little bit more aggressive energy that you're going to take action on something. But I do feel, yes, that's why I was pulled to it at that point in time. I would have rejected anything that was fluffy, soft, you know. Definitely anything with angels on it was
I
not
know,
for me.
right? And there's me with my beautiful deck of angel cards and
I know. Whereas I'm
talking
looking for
about the
the angel
light.
of death at that point in time. It's like, so when you say the tower card and the death card, and I'm thinking they were the ones that it was like fascinated with. Absolutely. But it shows you the difference that, I guess, trusting in the fact that no matter whether you're listening to this and you're someone who has, you know, got a selection of decks, whether they're Oracle, Tarot, otherwise, or you're someone who's been thinking for a while that you might actually like to go out and purchase one, trust whatever you're drawn to. Like, even if you go into, or you could be like both Liz and I, where you're actually physically pulled into a shop or feel that energetic pull into a shop, but go in and just trust yourself. There's no right, there's no wrong. And the one that you're drawn to is the right one for you.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't say any better myself. You know, to me, Oracle card decks or tarot decks, they are a mirror, a reflection of where you're at and what you need. So, you know, for someone like us now that have collections of different cards,
Yes.
intuitively, I will always pick up the card, that the deck of cards that I'm drawn
Yes.
to for that point. And interestingly, a student asked me the other day, so, when you're doing a reading, do you just choose one deck? No. When I
Yes.
read, I have like 5 decks in front of me, and I'll intuitively pick up dependent on what I'm focusing on. So I do have, the deck that if someone's specifically asked me a question on health, there's a deck that somehow just speaks to me in terms of health.
Yes.
There's the one on career. There's the one that just cuts through the shit, that gives me exactly what someone needs to know. Saying that, coming back to your earlier question, yeah, interesting how I have changed using cards. Before, it was very much similar to you. I would be literally hanging off the word of every word in that book. And I think it's having the book is just so awesome for anyone that's starting on a journey to build a relationship with a deck of cards.
Yeah.
How amazing that you can pick up some cards, ask either specific questions or just want that snippet of clarity or support to make a decision. And you can pick up any deck of cards and get that answer via a book. Amazing for someone starting out. However, what I say is, if you start that way and just carry on that way, it gets really robotic.
Yeah.
So for me, like after a few years of reading for myself, reading for all my friends and family, I just could memorize the book. I would be able to just like read like a script what every card meant, and it kind of stops becoming enjoyable. So moving away from the book is something that I always encourage people to do. People go like, oh, I'm not psychic, I can't do that. Bullshit. Yeah. Actually, what I do now, which I just absolutely love doing, is I'll sit with a question as an example, and then I will throw it out, set the intention. And I first of all will just do a dump of words. I will channel anything at all that comes through my intuitive senses,
Yes.
all the stuff and the way that I've spoken about before on this podcast. And then I go to the cards to go, was I right? And then I'll do the cards.
Right. So the cards are after.
Give me the validation that I'm right.
Right.
So I love this because not only does it give me so much trust and confidence in my intuitive senses, but it gives me big nudges sometimes to pass on messages. Sometimes I can intuitively get a message through for someone, which my ego steps in and goes, oh, I don't know if I can deliver that message. Maybe I've made that up. Maybe I shouldn't be saying something like that. Is it true? But then I double check with the cards and I'm getting an absolute, spot on message
validation
delivered. So then when I deliver that message and then I get someone nodding their head and going, holy shit, yes, it only builds my trust, my journey. So to me, it's pure validation.
Yeah, it's so funny because I thought I was following what you were saying because I thought I did the same, but I do the opposite. So I will, and it was one of the things that I started doing to build my intuition, which was pick a daily card. So not a spread. I used to do spreads. I still do spreads, but this was to build my confidence in myself and build my abilities. Pick one card and then, so literally, meditate for a little while, pick one card and then channel what's coming to me from that card. Write all of that down and then throughout the day, and it's literally my card for the day. So it's what's going to come up this day, if there's things that I need to handle, to work through, whatever it might be. And then go back at the end of the day and look at, was the card right? So you're doing it the opposite. You're almost channeling first, then getting the card and looking for the validation. So, whether you're listening to this and it's like, oh, I'm going to try Liz's, I'm going to try Diane's, try whatever. It's all trial and error until you find what works for you. But at the end of the day, it's the validation piece that's really important because otherwise, like, what's your intention when you're picking out this deck of cards? Because I think for me, my intention, because I don't read for other people, like, I mean, I've done it in the past, but it's not why I use cards. Cards for me are a validation, or almost like a soundboard with my higher self to kind of say, okay, there's a decision coming up, there's it's a different perspective. That's how I view it when I'm going through the cards. Whereas if you're looking at it that you're not validating anything, or you're looking outside of yourself. And we talk about this a lot on our different shows, that if you're constantly looking for that external validation from other people, then you're not going to end up with you're going to end up trusting yourself less. And what we want to do is get you to entrust yourself and your intuition more. So for me, the validation is I'm validating myself. I am validating my experience. It's not like I'm handing it over to, to the angels or to another, some being from another realm or dimension. It's like, literally, this is my connection with the universe and with my higher self. That's how I view my reading of the cards. What is it for you, Liz?
Honestly, the same. It's just that, again, what I want to be able to do is always go within for the answer. I don't really want to have other tools, right? So I want to be able to strengthen my intuition to the point where you don't need
trust,
the cards. And the bond is, and the action, more importantly, the trust and the action are there. So, flipping it was just such a key turning point on my journey.
Yeah.
Because I always did it the same. I would pick either a daily card, or I'd do always a 3-card spread is by far my favorite, past, present,
future. Yeah.
And I'd always, I'd choose the cards, I'd always write it down, and then I'd come back to it, and I'd be constantly coming back going, oh my God, yeah, look, this has happened. Evidence, build the evidence.
Yeah.
But since realizing that we have access to this wisdom, that we can actually get anything that we need to know from our bodies and from our intuitive senses, flipping it has just been mind-blowing for me. It's okay when you're reading for yourself, because you can kind of you're not too bothered about making mistakes or anything. But if you have the responsibility of reading for somebody else, the last thing that I want to do is be either wishy-washy, not give a specific answer, not give an evidence-based answer.
Yes.
Look, you say evidence, I don't know if you can call it evidence, but if I can get a strong message intuitively and back it up with cards, and sometimes if it's something really serious I'm delivering, I'll even back it up a third time with a pendulum.
Okay.
So stages of backup.
Yeah.
And that even can be an important decision for me. Shall I buy this house? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm
the
going to
big
get
questions.
the download myself, check in with the cards, and then I'll get a yes or no sneakily at the end, just because I don't believe or trust myself.
Yeah.
So it's like that second, third, fourth validation of a sign. But to me, flipping it has impacted the action part of this step for me. It's by me reducing the amount of doubt and pushing me to take action.
Yes.
I'd love you to try it, actually.
That's literally what's in my head, because I love it. That's what, yes, even if nobody's listening to us, Liz, that we end up
you always listen.
Talk about. We always talk about things, and it's like, I'm going to try that, because the trial and error part for me, it's like, okay, and that brings you to a whole other level. It doesn't mean that your starting point needs to be any different, but it's just keep mixing it up, keep, pushing your limits, pushing your boundaries on what's possible for you, because I guess even what I find doing things like this is that the building on your clair senses as well. On top of that, it's a case of, looking around and being a bit more in tune with, is something coming through to me in terms of, am I seeing a vision of it? Am I hearing something related to it? Is a feeling in my body? Tuning into that level of it as well. So not just being about the card, what the picture is on the card and what's written on the little booklet that comes along with it. It's like there's such a whole environment around that we can tap into with all of our senses.
And then, the cards are so special that you can really change your perspective on cards. When you first buy them, they're a beautiful deck of cards, and they're so interesting, and holy shit, they've just told me this. And, you can have so much fun, and you should always have fun with a deck of cards, and learn new practices, and don't stay in your own little bubble of how to read, really go on an adventure. But, even to the point where for me, it's they are so sacred. Okay. I've still got my deck from 20 years ago, my sacred deck.
Which one is that? I need to know what this is, and we can put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, I mean, the first ever deck was a Doreen Virtue deck, which I think she pulled all of them.
Yeah,
you can't even buy these anymore.
Yeah, you can't.
but they're called Healing with the Angels, and I'll pop a picture up on social media.
Yeah, very good.
I think even the point of having almost kind of like a ritual to cleanse your decks,
yes,
whether it's when you first buy it, or for someone like me that's owned cards for, you know, some decks for up to 20 years, this is something that I will come back to. And having that kind of sacred practice to kind of, you know, do whatever you intend it to do. It could be to clear stagnant energy, you know, to freshen them up. Really, really interesting, Diane, is that when I re-cleanse a deck of cards, my psychic ability amplifies. I don't know if there is because there's some type of block of energy because I'm constantly holding them and reading, or the kids might pick them up, or, you know, whatever happens. I've found that, if I do a ritual once every, I don't know, a couple of months, I don't go too crazy, to be honest, like some people may do. And I set an intention with the deck of cards.
Same.
It actually impacts me. It's really crazy.
So I wonder, well, obviously we've, you know, I guess our level of gifts are somewhat different, but I own, my cards are only used by me. So there is never, the intention of them is always coming from me. I'm not inviting someone else into that space. I'm not doing a reading for someone else. So I still do cleanse my cards, but it's never, I guess I view that it's still in tune with my energy. How I view it, though, is that it's with old versions of me. So because I constantly view myself in terms of timelines or raising your level of consciousness, it's that sort of, okay, I don't want to be stuck in the me that was, you know, 2 months ago. Therefore, cleanse the cards, get new energy into it, and see what's coming up, or, you know, my perspective from this point in time, from this timeline, if you will, rather than keeping the deck the way it has been for so long. So even though I mentioned about that first deck that I have, and it brings me back to teenage years, that's an intention. I still clear that deck. But that's the intention, and that's the association I have for that deck. Whereas there's other decks that's like a relationship. So key relationships in my life. If there's anything that I need to check, there's one deck that I go to for that. There's more kind of general or career, like business type things. But again, because it's just for me, like I don't have anything that's medical in nature, whereas some people do have, you know, anything that may be health or medical related that you can choose to, especially if you're reading for other people. But yeah, the process of cleansing, but again, that's something you've given me. I'll have a look the next time I cleanse. Am I getting I definitely believe I get different insights, and it feels different. There's a different energy to it after I cleanse it.
Girl.
Yeah, that's me. Clairsentient, yes.
I know, so
yeah.
clairsentient.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And you can change the intention of the cards and stuff as well. Like for me, cleansing is as simple as setting a clear intention, choosing a method. You know, there's so many different methods. Again, feel into it. Do you need to
So
some sage burning around it?
Well, let's talk about that. Let's start back at if you get a new deck, first of all. Okay. So what are your practices when you get a brand new fresh deck that you just can't live without?
God, I mean, this is going to sound super woo-woo. I think like the most important thing always to do with a new deck is actually spend time with the deck, you know. Yes. But for me, going on this spiritual journey, what I always like to do now is I will have a dedicated time for this particular ritual. So I might have my candle lit, I might have my incense lit. I will set a clear intention to invite in any particular spirit guides that I might be working with at the moment. Could be the angels, you know, whoever you're talking to, and bring them in to help you to build a relationship. You know, ask them to pass through the messages, pass through the validation. I have done all sorts of different things. Sometimes I will use sage. Sometimes I'll just sit a crystal on top of them. Okay. I encouraged a student to pop it in their crystal, their singing bowl, and just actually, you know, cleanse it with sound, because
I love that.
Everything is around frequency and energy. We were always harping on about this, aren't we? But when your cards are sat there or they've come off a shelf, then they are operating at a certain frequency. So change and align the frequency.
Yeah.
Set that as your intention to align it with you. And then spend time just holding every single card, looking at it, appreciating the colors, look at the symbols, check out the numbers on there. To me, if there's a lot of words on cards, I just don't like it, because it actually takes me away from my intuition. It confuses me.
Yeah.
I don't mind one word, you know, if you've got those decks that will say strength or soulmate or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, you will always choose the right deck for you, depending on where you're at with your journey. But it's just about spending time with it and giving it some love, I think.
Yeah, no, I think I'm similar in that, like, the biggest thing for me, like, I will generally sit out in the sunshine. It's like I want to have the sunshine, like, lay out all the cards, have the sunshine on them, but literally picking up each one of them. And it's not quite meditation, but it's like literally being present with each one of the cards, similar to what you've said. So just that I'm, okay, what's coming up for me as I'm viewing this? Then when I've all of that done, like, I will literally hold them against my heart, and I'm like literally meditating with them for a while and infusing whatever intention that I want into that specific deck. Now, sometimes I won't know what the intention, I need to get to know the deck before I can figure out what the intention is that I want to infuse. So it'll be a generic deck for a while. And then I will suddenly see, the messages here are much stronger in relation to whatever it might be, decision making as an example. And then it will be the one that I naturally reach towards. But I love what you said about the sound bowls, because I bought tuning forks when I started doing the healing practitioner. And one of the things that I've started to use it as part of when I'm cleansing my cards. And because I'm moving house at the moment, hence the naked walls and the hoodie, it's like literally moving boxes today. So part of the practice of cleansing my house at the moment as well has been going around with my tuning fork. And I've been doing it on my cards as well as part of the cleansing. So I love
If only people could watch us do this shit.
It's so funny. I thought about doing that because I was saging the house the other day, and I was thinking I should be doing, because I just don't think of these things and laugh at the fact. It's like, I really should be doing, what is the practice that you go through? It's like,
I know, right? Nutcases. Oh, it's so funny, isn't it? It's so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so when you have your new deck, so if you've done that, you've programmed it, so you've set an intention, you've cleansed it. Then if you've had it for a while, is it any different when you're cleansing the deck then, or
no,
or even changing the intention? Because that's not something I ever do. I've never done that where I've changed the intention of a deck. And honestly, I almost had a bit of a heart palpitation when you said it. I'm thinking, what to change the intention? Because they speak to me so strongly, or they seem like that deck is for this.
It can be tweaking. So as an example, you know how you said when you get to know a deck and you build a relationship with it, and you will find sometimes you're leaning towards getting certain messages from that deck. I might just tweak the intention based on that. I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm massively called to some decks and then I literally repel from them. I'm like, oh,
for
no,
ages.
I cannot use that. And it sits there for a long time. And I've learned in terms of the relationship to look, it's just like being a friend.
Yeah.
As funny as it sounds, like you can bring in a friend through the Spiritual Spoke podcast, but then end up finding you've got something else in common and end up spending more time talking about that other thing in common.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing that I found. So I will just tweak that intention depending on what I need.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Because I think I probably refine it over time what it is, but I don't reset a deck, to be something clear. But it's interesting because I have one deck at the moment that I bought it. I have tried numerous times to use it, and literally I nearly want to throw it away from me at times. I just think there's nothing. And then I think to myself, is it because I don't like the messages it brings up? Literally, and I think because it's less intuitive, so there are yes no cards in it. There are things that are just very almost like to the point, and I think there's nowhere to go with that. So I don't it'll be interesting. I should actually go back to it with a more curious mindset maybe after this podcast, and just say, sit with whatever's coming up for that. But then at the same time, it's like, you're better off spending time on the cards that you are drawn to, because they're the ones that have the, they're the ones that encourage your flow, your intuitive flow so much more.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we've all been there when we're we're doing a card spread because we want an answer and we get the answer that we don't want. And we're like, I'm going to try it again. I'll do it 3 times, 4 times, and then you do it 10 times that day.
Knock on the cards 3 times. Go again. Clear the energy.
You've got the jumping cards coming out for you, really trying to get your attention, and you're like, nah. So let's be honest. One thing I think that's really important if you are just reading for yourself is to open your awareness on what the cards are actually trying to tell you here, because it's that direct connection with your higher consciousness. There will be card decks that you're just not feeling, and I think it's really important to always just put them back on the shelf. Just
honor it. Absolutely.
But sometimes we can have serious avoidance when it comes to ignoring the messages that we're getting. Okay.
Yes.
And it can be in the times that it is, you've got that important decision to make and you're just not wanting to be honest with yourself. So to me, cards are to be taken seriously in the fact of if you take in the time to do them, only do them when you are willing to get the answer. Otherwise, they just become, again, part of that little thing that you just do for the sake of it.
Yeah. And intention, I think, is so important with that, because I know if I'm about to ask a big question, like a loaded question, you're thinking, okay, I'm not sure I want to hear whatever it's going to say. I will always, and this is like, I will use past, present, future as a spread, but I make up my own spread depending on what it is on the day and what are the questions I want to ask. But if it is something that I am particularly resistant or hesitant about, I will always ask, what am I not willing to see? And what's blocking me? So I'm asking, and it's almost, I'm putting myself into the mindset of I'm asking for this, therefore I'm allowing myself to be open to receiving.
Diane, you're so good. Everybody should do what Diane just said.
I didn't say that I always follow.
Okay. Well, the intention was there.
The intention is there, but it's still, I think it just opens you a little bit more. So a lot of the time when I'm doing, and maybe it is just constantly building self-awareness, I will always ask, what am I not seeing? What do I need to know? There's something, it just keeps me open, that I'm not just expecting all sunshine and roses. It's like, what are the things that, you may be blindsided to, or that are going on around you that you don't need to know. And sometimes you just need to, whether it's let go and let God or trust the universe, whatever way you want to put it, but just that you're allowing stuff to happen around you, because we all have to go through the shit and that tough stuff. It's like none of us come out of it, unscathed. So welcome those messages as they come through as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you just said, everything is intuitive when it comes to cards, especially, again, going back to Oracle rather than Tarot for me, my favorite. But, I get so many questions like, how long do you shuffle for? When should you pick this card?
Yes.
Should you take note of this? And I'm like, do you know what? None of that matters. It actually is just a case of trusting what comes for you. Trust what you choose. There is no set amount of time that you shuffle a deck. You just intuitively know when to stop. When you're laying the cards, lay as many as you need until you get the word stop in your head, so look into that. And I just do want to say that I'd love everyone to challenge themselves to step away from their book. There's so many different ways to look into and feel into cards. They tell a story always. There's so much symbolism in the pictures, in the colors. If you're someone that is into numerology, the number of the card can mean something. There's so much that you can get. And even, funnily enough, there's some cards that I just think are really too blah in my deck. And we all have those, So as an example, if I ever get like the music card or the study card, I'm like, that's boring. Tell me something more interesting. Yes, I like
High
music.
priestess.
But funnily enough, since I've flipped the way I do things, wow, these cards mean so much more. What I see in the card is like a whole story now. So yes, it's an interesting journey.
What I find fascinating too is that, you could, like, for say an old deck of cards that you've had for ages, and there's maybe cards that never come out for you. And then all of a sudden it comes out and you're like, oh, I barely even know what this card is. Or other times old favorites will come out and suddenly you realize, I never noticed that rainbow in the corner, or there's a cloud formation that looks like something. Like, there's just your eye is drawn and you're intuitively drawn to an element of the card that it has the core of the message for you. So it is, again, get out of your thinking brain and you're intellectualizing and am I remembering what this card is supposed to mean, or resisting the urge to not open the book. It's just feel it, explore it, like really just sense into the card as much as you possibly can, like meditate on it a little bit and just see what drops in, and whether you write that down, whether you just sit with it, but connect the dots of the story. So if you're pulling another card, what does that mean? And look at the two in relation. At the end of the spread, look at, is there a color that's coming out? Like I know for me, I'll suddenly notice that there's groupings of blue or there's something, and it's like that may have a meaning or an insight drop in for you as well. There's so many different ways to just be open to it. But when you find yourself over intellectualizing, and maybe that's just me, but that's where my head goes to. It's like I'm looking for, the analytics and all of that. It's like, no, just feel and sense into it a little bit more. Allow your intuition to be heard. What is the flash of vision that you're getting? Is there words dropping in for you? Are you feeling something about it? Is there a sense of knowing to do with the card? What is it that's coming through for you?
Divination tools such as oracle cards and tarot cards are the way that you can develop your intuition. Yes. Because when you are choosing a card, it stops your rational thinking mind.
Yes.
It provides you with a gap in time where your intuitive senses can flow. And this is exactly what I teach my students. Yes, there's so many different ways to develop your intuition. And the reason why we develop our intuition is because we want to access our inner wisdom. We want to have a roadmap. We want support to make decisions. So flip it and do it the other way around. And you see that validation. You see how your rational thinking mind that normally overanalyzes, overthinks, sends you into a spiral. Yeah. You see how easy it is to shut that off when you use oracle cards by flipping it.
Yes.
Try it and let me know how you go, because I've just had the most incredible breakthroughs, and I have watched people that have never ever picked up a deck of cards ever before and have come to a workshop with a set of cards, not even understanding what they are, not classifying themselves as spiritually open, being completely analytical thinkers, and coming and doing a card reading within 2 hours for someone that was mind-blowing.
For someone else. Yes. So doing it, and there again, it's like, we think, okay, I do cards on myself, and it's like, I know myself, but it's like if I have to do that for someone else, and the sense of validation that you get, that like that's absolutely huge. To go from brand new deck of cards, no idea whether I have any psychic abilities, not even sure that I'm, spiritually open, to then being able to have a validated reading with another person that I'm assuming, because it's a course, that they are unlikely to know anything about.
Nothing about. And this is why it's really good to read for other people. And just even for fun, if you sat having a glass of wine on a Friday night with a friend, you can do it via Zoom. You don't need to be there. Because
I have resisted that hugely. And it was actually probably because of the podcast, but my mum and my sister were out in February. And one night over the glass of wine, it was like, you've got all those decks in there. Why don't you bring them out and do readings? And I'm like, no, I don't do. And it was that sacredness was kind of touched me. He's like, no, my cards, And then I was like, okay, there's a reason this has come up. Go and do it. And I did. And I went into, and I was surprised. I was like, oh my God, stuff. Now, yes, this is my mum and my sister. I know loads of things about them, but it was that resonance of stuff that made sense to them at their point in time in their life. But like, again, since then, that's been months and months ago, and I haven't done it for anyone else since. It's just it's never called to me to do it for other people. I feel like I just find that it's a personal tool for me, but you're making me think to bring, like with anything, to bring your skills to the next level of anything, you need to be doing things in different ways, because if you always do it the same way, you're only going to get yourself to a certain level, whereas different perspectives, being able to do things in multiple different ways, that will tweak and refine your overall skills and ability. So yes, Liz, I will take on board some of the challenges.
And that's where I'm coming from. This is not suggesting that you all want to go out and do card readings as a psychic. by reading for other people, you're developing yourself personally. This is for your personal growth. This is for your developing of your intuition. So you can get to the point where you have that undeniable trust and you are able to take action.
Wow.
Because when you do it on yourself, again,
Yes.
your ego always comes in. Oh, it's just a coincidence that I've pulled that card 3 times. Oh, it's just a coincidence. I know myself too much. So this card is just telling me what I already know. It's actually only when you can practice on other people that you really get the validation, that you really can start to go, I'm kind of onto something here. I already got that message, and the card has just given validation that you can take yourself from here intuitively up to the sky. So don't practice on other people to give them a card reading. Practice more so for yourself. This is for your personal growth.
It's sorry, slightly to one side or slightly off track. One of the things that I've just realized as you're speaking there is that because I've probably been conscious or, being a little bit more curious about my clairvoyance. So it's not something that I came with naturally, but through working with you, it's coming out a little bit more, or I'm probably more aware of when it drops in. But what I've realized is I will often, in my mind's eye, see cards. So I could be talking to someone and I will see the tower from a specific deck of tarot cards, or the high priestess, and actually, now that I think of it, a lot of it is like it's major arcana in tarot cards is what I see. It's almost like if it's something big for that person, or even for myself, if something's coming up, that it's the visual of a card from a specific deck that comes in. And I've never even realized that until now.
Such a good example of clairvoyance. That is how your guides speak to you via symbols. They will show you something that you understand to deliver a message to someone clairvoyantly.
Yeah. And it's funny because those cards, like for me, I get a huge clairsentient feeling. Like I get feeling senses from all of the cards, but now it's funny that is tied to, it's like clairvoyantly, it's dropping in, and that activates my sense of feeling and knowing as I'm interacting with that person or as I'm going through my day. So that's I have never consciously made that connection until now, just as you were talking. So that's cool. Wow. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Now, obviously, outside of the cards, there's other things. I know that I think I was like 9 or something when my mum brought rune stones into the house and a pendulum.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever used rune stones. I mean, again,
I haven't used runes. I've used pendulum, but not runes. Yeah. So do you use them much in your work?
I used to use them all the time. I don't really. I've brought them out. Again, it's the same as the cards. Whenever I'm feeling into them, I'll bring them in. Runes are quite hectic, actually. They're very specific, so they're not as kind of floaty. They're probably more towards the tarot than at the oracle deck.
Okay.
And obviously you can have so much fun using a pendulum. I know that pendulums have always been used to be able to tell the sex of a baby when someone's pregnant.
I didn't know whether that was just a pagan Irish thing. So
holding it over the pregnant tummy. But I find the pendulum's just a really great way, again, to get after the cards, to go and get a really clear yes or no answer, and holding that pendulum and tuning into your energy field. And that I think that's always fun. Something you can do with your friends.
So I used to, and like this is going back to like when I was a kid. So my dad was into, doing pendulum, would do dowsing rods as well. Like we go looking for water or ley lines and stuff. But the pendulum for me, I always felt like, oh, is that just my intellect telling me what I want to know? I just felt it was too fine. Yeah, there was like any subtle movement could influence it. Whereas I find dowsing rods for me, so going yes, no, or asking specific questions on those, I find that gives me a better trust in myself and the answer that I'm getting than I do with a pendulum. But again, that's only for me. That's not, and it's only recently, like I've only recently bought dowsing rods again and started to get back into that side of things. But I feel I'm much more confident in myself and the answer I'm getting than if I use a pendulum. It just doesn't, I don't have the same level of confidence in myself. I'm too skeptical. I'm like, really? Did you're just trying to make it go round and round rather than over and back?
I think it's the same thing. So when you ask the pendulum a question, you always have to write down the answer, because normally you'll never be proven right until down the line.
Yes.
You know, it's like the story I shared before when my pendulum told me the first few dates of being with Jesse that I was going to marry him, have a boy and a girl.
Yes.
You know, it's only now, this many years later, that
boy and a girl later. Yeah.
That pendulum was right. And at the time, me and my friend were having a really good laugh going, can you imagine? Oh my God, you know, and it went in one ear, out the other. But, you know, it's similar. And again, it's what you're drawn to. And just for anybody that doesn't understand what dowsing rods are, because I don't think that everyone may know, they're basically a pair of sticks that you hold in your hand. You can even use a coat hanger, I believe, to even make your own.
Yeah, I made them as a kid. So literally 2 pieces of bamboo. So, or you could use, like, I don't like using plastic pens, but you could use plastic pens and then put coat hangers through. But the wire needs to be free flowing within your hands.
And they're used for all different types of things. So you can basically, they will move on their own. They can cross, they can point in a certain direction. You know, I know a pair of ghost hunters that will use these to figure out if there are any ghosts in the room.
Our next episode.
Yes, next episode. So yeah, I mean, and you can actually buy them on eBay for like $6, because I got myself a pair because I was so interested to kind of see how they actually worked. It's not something I really, you know, really pick up, but they are fun and really, you know, fun to play around with to get that kind of extra message and stuff. Are there anything else that you use, Diane?
No, it's funny you say that, because what I did find, like, I'm really enjoying using the dowsing rods, but seriously, they're big, they're cumbersome. I'm not going to carry them around in my hand. Like, I know you've got a really cute pair that can be.
They look like a spy pen.
Yeah, they look like a pen. I probably should buy a pair of those, but I just feel that it's fine when I'm around the house, if I'm in my office, in my space, and I'm, you know, meditating or asking questions that I specifically want to know. But what I've been doing on top of that is training my body response. So it's almost like when you're building your intuition and you're using the cards as a tool, but then you get to a point where, so for me, as an example, those drop-in messages of actually seeing the card, I didn't need the card in front of me. I'm getting that message drop in clairvoyantly. Whereas with the dowsing rods, I've kind of, so I'll use them to ask questions, but what I'm training my body is to see my yes, no response. So literally standing and kind of, you know, I'll program myself to say that lean forward for yes, lean back for no, and which I would do with the dowsing rods, like crossover for no, straight for yes. But it's programming myself. But now I kind of find that, okay, if I don't have the dowsing rods, then I'm leaning into that more and more. So it's interesting. Yeah, just that.
I love that.
But I feel like I just want to go out into wide open spaces and get out into the field. So I can't wait to get back to Ireland and go, you know, lay lines and really
find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, Diane, please.
With a little leprechaun there too.
And I just want to say here as well, like, you don't need money to delve into divination. You know, oracle cards, as an example, can be made with just pieces of paper and words written on them. If you've got a deck of playing cards in the house, you can just use them. It's just as simple as tuning in and almost like programming each card with a message. It's something that I've played around with my kids. You know, we've even done really simple ones like yes, no, maybe. They've done little patterns or little drawings on there, and they'll ask themselves just to kind of, again, get them to start to practice and trust them what's happening or what's coming to them. So you don't have to go down there and start spending fortune buying everything that we've told you today. Like, really, it starts with just having a go at home. Yeah,
it's funny you say about working with the kids as well, because like myself and my daughter, we play cards, like loads of different card games, and we play them every day. But then it's like messages will come up. It's like all of a sudden you've got, 3 5s, and like between the two of us, like change. It's like, it's like there are messages, whether it's from numerology perspective or, the King of Hearts. It's like those things will come through. And you're just thinking, this is so cool that we have incorporated that into just playing regular cards. And she now sees those things coming through as well.
Hell yeah. And I know people that you'll drink a cup of coffee and they'll be reading the bottom of your coffee cup or your tea leaves. That's another form of divination.
Have you ever had that done?
I have.
Yeah. Have you done it on other people?
Okay, so I have tried to do this.
Yeah.
I'm shit at this. I can't see anything in those coffee cups. I'm looking and going, well, the coffee looks good.
Yeah.
I don't see anything.
Yeah.
But some people have that knack. My grandma used to read tea leaves. That's what she was famous for.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to learn how to do it. but I've not found a way just yet.
Yeah. So before I came to Australia, I had a really old, beautiful character of a lady read tea leaves for me. Now, I don't drink tea. I hate tea. Like, I literally feel physically sick from tea. So to have to drink stewed tea leaf cup of tea and then when she found out I didn't like it, she must have put 5 sugars into it. So a little china cup, and it was just laden with sugar. But she went through, and the things that she told me that all absolutely came true about me coming to Australia, to the point where, oh, your passport and your application is delayed, knew who I was going with, spoke about things, even spoke about people that we would meet in Australia. All of this stuff came true. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all from a cup of tea.
I guess it's the same thing though, right? She's just opened the psychic channels.
Yeah. So whether you're looking at the little rainbow on the side of the card that you haven't seen before, again, it's what you're intuitively opening yourself up to. But it is
whatever
fascinating. Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're a tea drinker and you think you want to give that a go, there's something you can also do on your friends. And it is that if you're worried that you can't, that's self-validation, or you know yourself too well, do it on other people. And if nothing else, it's a bit of fun to go and give it a go.
Absolutely. And I might even throw out a couple of card spreads even this week on our Instagram page.
Yeah.
So if you're not following our Instagram, it's at spiritual.a.f. Perhaps we'll take some photographs of those dowsing rods, and maybe our week, let's chat about this stuff.
And even maybe our top 3 decks, and we can ask people to say, okay, either post us or tag us in some of whether it's your favorite deck, whether it's your favorite card, anything, because we just we love geeking out on what kind of floats other people's boats too.
Absolutely. And we always say, please share your stories with us. Jump onto our Instagram, go through to our website. All of the details are in the show notes. And, this type of stuff is just super interesting for us, as obviously it is for you. So let's find that tribe where we can actually talk about it with. Now, talking about our tribe, oh my God, do we have some interesting guests coming up on our very next episode?
Woohoo!
So growing up, Diane and I were very scared of ghosts. We thought in time for Halloween, we decided to go out and hunt. I didn't mean to say that. We decided to go and find some ghost hunters, some real paranormal investigators to share their stories. So the very next episode, we are going to be delving into everything around the subject of ghosts. So we would love to hear your ghost stories in preparation. And because it's Halloween on the 31st, we will be releasing our next episode slightly earlier. So get ready for it on that day. Make sure you're in a safe space because it might get a little bit spooky. And of course, we can't wait to hear your ghost stories as well, because I do believe we're going to be releasing a little competition at the end of the next episode as well.
Bring it on.
Bring it on, that's right. So thank you so much for being here today. We cannot wait for the next episode. And please, review, send us those testimonials. Absolutely everything makes our day and makes us smile. Thank you so much for being here again.
That's it for another episode.
Thank you for listening. Did you know that we are building a movement of 1 million people who are spiritual as fuck? We would love for you to join us. You can start by leaving us a review on Apple Podcast. Every month, I'm going to intuitively choose one person and do a psychic reading for you. So
follow us on Instagram, send in your stories and topic suggestions, and join the movement
at spiritual.a.f. Until next time.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.